these are like, I don't know, I'm going to make a weird analogy here, and I'm no physicist, but they talk about at the event horizon of a black hole, you start to detect these anomalies, things going slower than they think, things being connected to other things that you wouldn't expect. And I often think in an analogy this way, that when you approach like something like the Eucharist, you're approaching a black hole. And so things are going to happen that look anomalous to you, that flout your, like paradox means against common opinion, paradoxa, against the common opinion, against what you would expect. So that can sometimes be a contradiction, it could lapse into that, or it can be something greater than sense making in the normal way. And I would say, even in physics, as far as I understand it, through the memes, that's sort of the whole game right now. That's the whole that's where a lot of the interesting thinking is happening and all that. And I'm saying there's got to be something like an analog in the spiritual realm as well, which of course is the only realm ultimately. So I think those are like this time bending stuff isn't just like, hey, this is a cool sci-fi trilogy. Yeah, let's do some time bending stuff. It's like the time bending is that you're here at all already talking about this, or we can get into all kinds of things like, Christ on Holy Thursday offers his body and blood to his disciples, but that body wouldn't be killed and the blood wouldn't be spilled to the next day. How did that happen? These are sort of like these time loops, these little warps that are starting to have these anomalies that are appearing at the event horizon, so to speak.
So Taurus, right? Toroidal Tauruses. Like the Taurus, though, I think this is, in a sense, it's kind of an image of everything, right? I mean, probably everything is like this because it is in 2-dimension. A Taurus isn't 2-dimension, but in 2-dimension, it could be a circle, an Ouroboros. And it circles everywhere. It circles horizontally, it circles this way, it circles that way. You could also take every one of these little points in here as its own torus. So it's toruses on toruses, Russian nesting dolls. But at the center of the torus, of the donut hole, is a lac. You could also do this. This is the cosmos. This is the universe. At the center here is the singularity. Maybe at the center here is the very centerpiece of the black hole, from which all fecundity grows. And someone shared something with me recently about how maybe the darkness has light in it. Like even the dark is not dark to you. We just don't yet, again, have the humility in our science to understand what's really going on there. I also think of Interstellar, right? Matthew McConaughey going in sacrificially, going into the black hole, into the what do they call it? The Tesseract, right? In the middle, whatever. There's a lot of it, but like the Taurus, this is how I conceive of a human being. We have an ineffable essence, a core of being. From a Christian perspective, I would call it a logi, because in him we live and move and have our being. The logi is the origin of your being that is constantly outflowing and fractally replicative everywhere, but the center of it is infinitely ineffable, but also infinitely generative, giving birth to everything that is. Exactly. Donut. And so, but like this is what allows, this is essentially, it's also an image of an icon, because you can see it, there's all these appearances of it, but what is it and what is at the core of it? It's something that's beyond naming in an all-encompassing way. Because like, what is it that you've studied, or whom is it that you have studied that you've realized there is no depth? Everything. And this is part of the problem of disagreements, right? This is part of what I get into with confessionalism and industrial or institutional religion. What's the difference between industrial religion and institutional religion? Because to me, there is no difference. I don't know how you can have, like, how do you have industrial religion before the Industrial Revolution and the Gutenberg Galaxy, right? The Gutenberg, like, again, history isn't arbitrary. For those with eyes to see, I think you can make these connections. We invented the printing press. Books became much more easy to have. We got writing everywhere. Everyone could read. You no longer had to trust the authority of the magisterium of the priests. You could just trust in your own reading of the books, right? And then all of a sudden, we came to what Sigmund Freud called the narcissism of small differences, because everybody had their own interpretations of these texts, which led to disagreements, embodied disagreements that led to schism upon schism upon schism upon schism, right? But if you understand that everything is fractally toroidal like this, and that the inside is an infinite fecundity of things you don't know, then like the text is, have you studied the Bible so much to realize there's no bottom? Have you studied anything to realize there's no bottom? I realized this with theology and doctrine because I did this with the doctrine of hell. I'm also currently doing it with like Christology and talking to Sam about the Trinity and God. And again, I was talking about wills, gnomic will and natural will. Like, did Christ have two wills or did he have one? That gets into like the Chalcedonian disagreements. Like, was it human and divine wills? Did he have two separate and human divine wills? And how does that work? You know, like there's no end to these things. And I've fallen off the peak of Mount Stupid, Dunning-Kruger, hopefully, God willing, so that in such a way that when I have disagreements with people, I do not lose their humanity in the disagreement, and I realize no matter how well they're presenting their argument, I try to steel man them, starman them. That's what starmanning is to not lose someone's humanity. You realize they are in the image of God, or that they have a divine spark. They are their humanity is valuable and true and good. And so when you're talking to them, even if they're maybe someone's talking to you and disagreeing with you in a not ideal way, in a way that you don't prefer, but you still realize, like, again, you can't judge them, because if you were them, you would be doing what they're doing. So you can't judge them. You can extend grace and mercy to them while still disagreeing with them for both of your mutual edification. That's what we're doing in TLC. I think that's why I like this place. This is why this is one of the few places that I have actual intellectual conversations about people that I disagree. Can you have actual disagreement there? You know, or in a marriage, when a husband and wife say, like, this is the way that I think we should handle finances, kids, whatever. And if there's an actual disagreement where it's irresolvable, like this is a place where we do not agree. Like, we do not see this in the same way. This is what has to happen. And this reminds me of the Jordan Peterson thing of, like, when he said when you disagree with someone, there's three options, right? And he says there's slave, there's tyrant, or there's work it out. If one person just overpowers the other one in whatever way, physically, mentally, in a masculine way, in a feminine way, I would argue that that's not real agreement. That's power. The slave, the tyrant thing doesn't work. It's not true. It's not real. It's not good. It's some form of dishealth that eventually is going to need to work its way out, because no one gets away with anything. The body keeps the score. And I mean that both in a physical body, but also subtle bodies. The body keeps the score with subtle bodies too, which is why industrial religion isn't going to work, because the body keeps the score, the industrial subtle body of whatever the thing is. It'll keep the score, and if you are out of harmony with with your environment, with the world, with everything else, eventually you will collapse. You know, if you're not breathing in and breathing out with your environment properly, like if you become too rigid and fundamentalist, and you're just like, oh, I'm not going to breathe, you're going to die. You have to breathe, you know? And if you breathe too much, that's not, you know, you're going to hyperventilate, or you're going to become high on oxygen or something. I'm not sure. But, so you have to be in a healthy dynamic. So then, as Peterson says, slave, tyrant, or work it out. Well, what is the work it out? It's that you agree implicitly, even if it's not explicit, that us being able to continue to interact and play is important. And so what's that involve? It involves some degree of, it's going to be co-suffering, because it's going to be hard. One or both are going to have to die in many ways. I die every day. I become a living sacrifice. I give up what I want. Love does not insist on its own way. And there's mutual submission in some way, in a way that you both agree upon in order to stay together and intact. That's the only way that divorce doesn't happen. And then I would argue war is the inability to have conflict. Or to apply it to this stream, war is the inability to disagree well. You're saying, like, it's people insisting on their own way to such a point that it's saying, like, I have to go to war with you. Now, is there potentially a time, here I'm going to post the link, is there potentially a time to say, whatever, this is not working right now, and in some way, hopefully peaceably and on good terms, say we need to amicably separate and go our own ways for a time, because you can't be unified in that thing that you're trying to do. And this is where boundaries come in, and walls and stuff. Like, this is probably a lot of the people who criticize TLC, that they're just like, I think the critics of TLC are trying to accomplish something that is different than I think the implied or tacit or subtle spirit in TLC is trying to accomplish, right? Because TLC is a subtle body. It has a name of some sort. It has boundaries, although they're pretty hard to classify and nebulous, right? An estuary has boundaries, although it's a little nebulous, right? But you say the estuary's here, and then at some point you go far enough this way, there is no more estuary. So like, even though there's an estuary of freshwater and saltwater, why do you assume you're the freshwater and not the saltwater? You need to have the humility, because like, I have my opinions and I think I'm right, obviously, because that's why I have them. But to absolutize that and to say like, of course I'm right and the person I'm talking to must be wrong, you're implicitly trying to colonize them. And like, do you think you're freshwater? Maybe you're the saltwater. If you don't want to have an amicable separation, like I was talking about, which I said is necessary sometimes to accomplish things in the world. Like, if one person is trying to build cars and one person is trying to build airplanes, like, you have to separate because you have different goals. Mm-hmm. But if the point, like in this space, is to talk about ideas and figure out what the hell we're talking about when it comes to God, philosophy, politics, whatever, and that you want to have ongoing disagreements with people with whom you disagree so that you're actually doing something rather than just like circle jerk group thinking, you have to have the other.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
I worry about this with myself sometimes. I don't want to make it all about me right now, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, because as you know, I do have certain convictions, kind of like yourself, Luke. I think this is part of the reason I resonate with a lot of things you say, is because, also we agree on a lot of things, but just like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of times I'm raving about my personal beliefs. So I worry about that with myself, and it's definitely a big problem. I don't know, it reminds me of universalism in a way where, not that all paths lead to God or something, but like all God can be found on all paths is maybe the way, the answer to that one or something.
Not all paths lead to God, but God can be found on all paths.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that all things participate somehow in the grander plan.
It's a higher level because it actually includes the lower ones. The solar system includes all the planets within it. And, a tissue includes all the cells within it. So these higher levels are inclusive levels of organization.
Yeah. So forgive me if I rave too much. Maybe I'm doing it right now.
I think one of the interesting things about what Jonathan said, and then I'll shut up because Matsy and Jess haven't said anything, but the thing about when we, and this goes really into kind of like a killer counterfeit gods reformed thing, which is like, what do we do with our, in Luther's idol making or it was Calvin, idol making factories? Is that to me sometimes lands you into a postmodern flattening of everything. It has this tendency to create a type of nihilism about what should I do, because you have to build towards something, and when you build towards something, you have to have like an ideal, and so obviously the Christian answer to that is Christ. But like, what happens in between there when we have difference and we want to put something up above?
Basically, conforming too much to rules and systems is self-deception. And you always need to be in relationship. Like, there's no information on its own. It's all relational between us. And it's not like it's relative, like it's just relativism. We're just in a floating world where we can just make our own meanings and our own, like there are real real relations,
These higher levels.
but they're relations, and those are important to information.
Could I tag on to that? I was kind of thinking about something similar when you were before you started talking with that rules thing. It's like
Everything that has a name, everything that you can recognize, is a joining of heaven and earth together, right?
it's like for those who can't like abide in love, then you need rules, and then for those who can't follow the rules, you need like police officers to like enforce things, and then like so there's kind of this like emanation where it's like the spirit always moves as it wills and will like change the way that it's informing things. So as it relates to like creeds and stuff, it was reminding me about like concept versus percept, the way that McLuhan talks about it. Like insofar as like we make concepts like English propositions, like the terminology of the rock reminds me of this idea of like realism, right? So that there is like an elephant, which is reality, and we're all kind of, and we have percepts like direct participations in reality, and then we have concepts about it, and I do think part of, yeah, so I don't know, I just wanted to toss that in the mix, because I guess the Trinity would be a concept, you know, but there's a percept about something real, and I think, yeah, the Trinity gets very close. Also, like, that's the thing that Luke was saying about icons and idols. It's like, we could be idolatrous about the Trinity. Maybe it's a hexagram. This is one of my contentions, you know? But we can also, like, there's a place for having, you know, truth claims about, like, rocks.
The Messiah is the seventh term or principle of the hexagram. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Mother, Daughter, Holy Soul equals Shekinah, or the community of Israel. He is the agent of all, the active summary of the bipolar Trinity, or as we have called it, the luminous Holy Trinity. Wow.
That image of the Seal of Solomon, where he shows like the luminous Holy Trinity, that it would also be the symbol of the union of heaven and earth.
You know, on earth as in heaven.
Uniting heaven and earth.
Right.
So as it relates to like creeds and stuff, you know, we have to be open to that mystical revelatory newness is the way I would put it. But then I also think Peugeot likes to hint at this, you know, of course the heaven and earth symbolism, right? It's like I would say what Baxter was talking about there was more about like the inheritance, and that like how do we decide, you know, where to how do we pay homage and respect to these various creeds and traditions? And it's something about like the inheritance, and that the body keeps the score, like Luke was saying, and that like we need to strike a balance, of course, is I think one of the deepest patterns, one of them at least, and like how it's tricky to discover your true inheritance, as it were. You know, how much of it is about your localism, how much of it is your like you know, spiritual inheritance, and like, you know, one could argue that we are all living in inherently Christian times, as it were, or something like that, perhaps. Aquarian Christianity, that's the last thing I'll say. So
The work was originally composed as an unbroken block of text, because I felt if I stopped writing to format it, I would lose it. It went, "Lo, the Father enthroned on high, and from him all the world proceeds. Lo, the void, the womb below, and to her all the world is given. Lo, the Spirit who cometh down, lo, the flesh who riseth up. Strife the many, and peace the one. Ascend, O moon, into the sun. Eclipse his eye, thy will be done. Lo, Abraxas, to thy pupil cometh sight, for from thy shadow shineth light."
I don't really see God the Father as a Renick, like he's the whole thing.
Right.
I really do think that God the Father is beyond all of those kinds of categorical distinctions. And in that sense, like the clearest analogous thing is, you could say, like, you know, the ground, the fountainhead from which anything emerges, you know, he exists in, you know, pure light or whatever. It's almost like the way that I conceive of it is why I like this idea of the, you know, that torus this thing that is. I'll add that in a little bit.
Yeah,
like
sure,
the
go for
Taurus, that's like the. You could almost think about it cosmologically like the singularity or a black hole at the center of any universe from which everything emanates. But I think all of those are interconnected in ways that we can understand through wormholes. And so like every person is like that, of how like even inside you is a universe, that self where the paradox resolves, like the receive with meekness, the implanted word is like the singularity at the core of your being from which everything emanates, but they're all fractally relocated, where it's like it's almost like the magician's nephew, and like that realm they go in the wooded forest where there are pools and they open up into different worlds. Like those are like the singularities at the core of every person, and like none of those things exactly. You could almost say that like the cosmic Christ, Jesus is the cosmic Christ, is the entirety of those things. Like we say in the liturgy, Christ the only existent one. And then fractally, we are all that in our own way. But is that related to somewhat of what Adam liked with when David Bentley Hart, and can you walk us through the grammar, I guess, of this? Maybe this will tie things in, of when he was talking about that we are the same genus as the genus of the Father?
Yes. I think that our ability to be microcosms of the macrocosm is what he means that we are the genus of the Father. Because we can.
So I've never understood that arbitrary distinction. Like even energy essence stuff to me seems to me to like try to lean into to difference rather than unity. It seems to me to be a false.
And Hart does not like essence energy distinctions, because he doesn't like any kind of dualism, right? And he feels like that smacks of dualism, and it makes God in his truest sense inaccessible
to other. To me, it's a bastardization of the incarnation.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think Hart would absolutely agree with that, because it's basically saying that you're only getting some created version of Jesus when you look at him, as opposed to full God in himselfness.
So do you think David Bentley Hart would say that we're all begotten of the Father?
Yes.
Is that a simple way to say it?
Yes, we are all begotten of the Father, and for some reason a human soul, a human person, is the unique sort of thing that can be a full a microcosm of the macrocosm, and when we achieve that perfectly, we are a vision into the whole, and that we kind of perfectly radiate out the true nature of all creation, or something like that.
And Jesus is unique in that
he did it first. Right.
He did it first, but also first in a sense of like, because this is where I like to bring in Father Bear, I think, because Jesus really is like, he's the first man. And in that sense, he's the second Adam. He is perfected Adam. Yeah. And so like, in as much as we want to be human beings, we have to follow in his wake. And so that is his uniqueness, is he is, behold the human being.
Mm-hmm. Yes, like the answer to Jesus's uniqueness is the Theotokos. I think that was Sherry that said that, and I think that's my answer. I wouldn't use the phrase Theotokos, but basically, Mary and the virgin birth is, and that like God's intentional miraculous creation of Jesus is sort of my answer to that.
Can I riff on that a little bit, because that's kind of why I jumped in. You don't get a firstborn without a bearer, right? So the Theotokos is the bearer, right? The God bearer. Children are the world to come. Messiah dwells in the world to come. Thought experiment. How many women did God ask to be the God bearer? Like, just as a thought experiment, I'm not saying I know anything about this, but how many women throughout linear time, there's a difference between that and God's timing, were asked to do that, but it's not that they refused, because if they refused, we would have heard about it. They didn't hear him.
Yeah.
So that's a totally different scenario. So the Theotokos was a woman who heard God. That's like, she had to be in a place to do that, right? She had to be somewhere in order for that to happen. She heard him and she answered him and she bore Christ. And so he is described as the firstborn. And then the whole thing for me goes back to naturing and denaturing. This is how I think about the two natures of Christ, thanks to paganism. Thor is not the god of thunder. Thor is thunder. So Thor is fully God and fully thunder. Okay? Just as Christ is fully God and fully man. And the Theotokos gives him that. That's her contribution to his nature, is his humanity, right? And so when we question whether Thor was God or thunder, we've lost the thread. Okay?
Yeah.
Thor is both fully God and fully thunder. Like, this is just makes it so much easier to understand, I think. Talking about the not denaturing something. And we all have that. We are all children of God, right? Because, and that's what Jesus, that to me, that's what the good news is. Jesus says, I have come to reveal the Father. If you have seen me, you have seen the Father. In other words, this is the good news. The good news is that we're all divine, right? Because we have this Father. Here's our Father. He's God. So we are fully God and we are fully man, you know? I don't know if I'm doing a good job of this because I'm not a theologian.
Well, that's very much, I think Sherry's very much in agreement with Hart in that divinity isn't this other second nature. It's
right.
Just the fully realized potential of humanity. So it's
he is the second Adam in that he had a life-giving forgiveness. Like,
yeah, well, he became the second Adam, became a life-giving spirit. The weirdest verse in the whole New Testament.
I think it makes perfect sense in what we're talking about.
Yes, I think so. But I think that is the verse that I think needs to be meditated on the most to try and really understand, I think, Christology. Do you want to pull up this Ralph Waldo Emerson quote?
Yep.
All right. So this is he uses this in the introduction of his book. Every man is a divinity in disguise, a god playing the fool. Right. So every human being has this sort of latent divine potential. And this is another point that David Bentley Hart spends a lot of time talking about in this book, but even more in some of his other previous books. Like I won't be able to attribute the title to them, I forget, but that humanity must in some sense be divine already, in at least in terms of potential, if we are to be the sort of thing that can become, God by participation. Because you can't become something that is foreign to your own potential as a person.
Deep calls to deep, yeah. Absolutely.
Because if you, and like we sort of use this analogy, like a caterpillar can become a butterfly because it's within the natural capacity of a caterpillar to become a butterfly, but a caterpillar can't become a Ferrari without being smashed on the windshield, because a caterpillar does not have the natural potential to become a Ferrari without being annihilated. And so if we are to truly become, sons of God or fully divinized human beings, then or spiritual people, then it must be within our capacity to...
Within our nature?
Within our natural... Yes, within our nature, within our natural capacity to become such, or else it would destroy us to make us into something that we can't become.
So that's what it means to be made in the image of God, as an icon of God, is it is within your nature to become gods. We are gods. That's
yes. Yes, you are gods. Yes.
This is the weird, back to the Taurus thing that I was talking about, is to be made in the image of God. Our finitude includes infinity. And that's why I think David was saying is it's not really a paradox, because...
Well, right. I agree that it's not like paradox. Here's what I would say about paradox and synthesis. And regardless, like, I don't really care about Hegel, to be honest with you. But I'll say about this, I believe in the possibility of synthesis beyond paradox, because I think that most paradoxes are a product of the limitations of language itself. Like, we cannot with our language create the perfect model of the real. So we always end up in these paradoxes. And I think I have this strong intuition lately that our paradoxes. Paul mentioned something about this in the comments where he wanted to clip where I was talking about this earlier with you, Luke. But there's a way in which our paradoxes are a result of the way our language is
information or static or definitional, which none of it is. And that's why we know sola scriptura is dumb, or church as a mere stated authority propositionally is dumb. It doesn't work, because if you go into it, because information does not give you meaning. So that's never been what language is. The finitude of language as encapsulable, controllable, understandable thing is a torus. If you go into it enough, it infinitely opens up.
The more you are able to bring out that which cannot be heard, the more you use the audible as the vehicle for the inaudible. So much the more is the music permeated with the soul. To feel this in the musical element is precisely the task of the eurythmist.
Speaking is also gesture. Eurythmic activity of God is basically, what happens when God speaks the world into being. He performs eurythmy, particular movements, like he's talking about the movement of God. And I think that's...
Like, the thing that bothers me really about traditional incarnation language is that it turns Jesus into not like a human who's doing human things, but as something just like an example. Like, Gregory of Nyssa even will say this, that like when Jesus prays, he's not praying because he needs to pray, he's praying to teach us and show us to pray. When Jesus was tempted by the devil, he wasn't actually really tempted, he was just kind of doing it to show us the path through temptation or stuff like that. I'm like, no, that's what really gets my goat, is that no, Jesus prayed because he needed to pray. And like, Jesus goes off into the wilderness for like sometimes days at a time for his own benefit because he needs to. And when Jesus is being tempted, he is struggling but winning the struggle. And that it takes sort of the drama and the human element, and I would also say the accomplishment out of it when you take away that element of Jesus's humanity.
So let me guess.
And that's what really bothers me, I think, about a lot of traditional Orthodox.
So I think, Sam, for you then, having just said what you just said, then I think you would find it the idea that Jesus had no gnomic will to be a denial of his.
See, that's exactly where I was going to go. Like, I think Jesus was tested. It's like someone running a race. Like, it was hard. That's the difference between testing and tempting, how that Greek has both those words in it. But like, to run a race with endurance is hard. The passion is hard. It's very, very difficult. But I don't think Jesus was ever running the race and thinking, should I stop? I don't think he ever had that gnomic thought, like, should I give in? I think that's a temptation.
But what about Gethsemane, right? Please take this cup away from me, right? But right? But the thought is there. The thought is there.
He doesn't say please. He says if this cup could be taken. It's like he knows it's not going to be.